Bitcoin is scarce in the sense that there's 21 million of them, but so what? It's just a string of numbers. There's nothing to look at. There's nothing that it does that's any different than all the other strings of numbers of all the other cryptocurrencies. In fact, there's 2.1 quadrillion Satoshis. I mean, there's enough Satoshis for everybody to have hundreds of thousands of them. You can't do anything more with a Bitcoin than you can with a Satoshi, which is nothing.
You were watching the presidential debate last night. I was watching the Bitcoin versus gold debate between Jack Mallers and Peter Schiff. We're not the same. Today, we're going to go over some highlight clips from this epic debate. We'll cover topics like Bitcoin priced in gold returns corrected for inflation, has it really performed well? The problems with inherent value. Is Bitcoin really scarce if it can be infinitely divided? Yes, I'm serious. Whether Bitcoin can even be considered money today. And finally, did gold officially fail as money in 1971? Let's get into it. This past weekend, David Lin released a hotly anticipated debate between Jack Mallers, CEO of Bitcoin company Strike, and Peter Schiff, gold bug and prominent Bitcoin skeptic. Okay, let's get right into it with some highlights, and I'll provide some commentary on the back end.
Even though Bitcoin made a new nominal record high this year in dollars, it never made a new high in gold. The high for Bitcoin priced in gold was still back in 2021. And we're more than 30% below that high now, about 3 years later. So I think the tide has already turned, where Bitcoin is going to continuously lose value measured in the price of gold.
If you were to zoom out that same chart, David,
sure.
Bitcoin made a local high when priced in gold in late 2013. It entered what Peter's calling a gold bear market all the way until 2017, where it hit smashing new highs. That was a 3-year gold bear market Bitcoin was in. It then made another smashing high in December of 2017. It remained in what Peter describes as a gold bear market up until 2020, where it made new smashing highs. And so now we're in what Peter's describing another gold bear market for another 3 years. I see no evidence as to why Bitcoin won't continue to smash and make new highs. And then maybe some years down the road, I'll be on a call just like this and Peter will say we'll enter another gold bear market. You can't call an asset over a 3-year period, such a short time frame, a bear market when over its history, it's continuously outperformed gold over and over and over again. To me, that looks like adoption cycles. That doesn't look like a bear market. I think for my case for Bitcoin, in my opinion, it's the best money in human history. It's for very fundamental purposes of the properties that we want in a money. For one, it's the scarcest money in human history. It's the only monetary asset of all time that has a fixed supply. It's the most portable asset of all time. It's the only monetary asset that you can teleport over a communications channel like the internet. It's the most divisible asset of all time. It can measure an asset that's the size of a grain of sand. It can also measure assets the size of sports franchises. It is infinitely divisible because it is bytes of data. It's durable, it's portable, it's actually censorship resistant to governments and central parties, which gold, unfortunately, is not. And so to me, Bitcoin has been the most performant asset in human history. If you don't want to take the early number bias, over the last decade, Bitcoin has an average annual return of around 60%. Gold has an inflation-adjusted return of annually around 2% over that same duration. So I think Bitcoin is better money. I think monies compete over monetary policy, and I expect Bitcoin to continue to do what it's already done.
So Schiff brings up that Bitcoin is down when priced in gold, which is true. But I think it's also important to note that the gold price, when corrected for inflation, hasn't even hit the highs it made in the early 1980s, which I find just mind-blowing. Gold is lauded as some perfect hedge against inflation, yet it hasn't even been able to keep up with it over the last 40 plus years. I will agree that, of course, Bitcoin priced in gold is a much more accurate price signal than Bitcoin in USD. Gold is hard money, and of course the US dollar is not. And as we discussed in yesterday's video, the Bitcoin price when adjusted for inflation is actually much lower than it is today. The point is, which Jack points out, is that Bitcoin historically works in cycles, and we are still currently in the recovery phase of the previous bear cycle. So if history rhymes at all, we should expect new highs for Bitcoin priced in gold as well as USD in the next year to year and a half. But of course, only time will tell. Okay, let's get into the next clip, which covers the infamous inherent value debate.
Scarcity in and of itself doesn't mean anything. I mean, gold is not valuable because it's scarce. I mean, it has a high price because it's scarce, but its value is not from its scarcity, but from its properties as a metal, right? Gold can do things that other metals and other material can't do. And so there are a lot of places where gold is used because it adds a lot of value.
I can't believe I'm arguing this with the Peter Schiff. All value is subjective, David. It's actually the fact that you can't chew your Bitcoin, put it in a jewelry kit, sponsor it in a music video is a property. It's a pro to the asset. If you had a money that had 10 total units and you were producing 1 unit per year, so that's the stock to flow ratio, the new supply dynamic. Let's just, for example's sake, if you were to take half of that total supply and you were to demonetize it and commercialize it and consume it, that makes it a worse money because now the total money supply of that monetary good is now 5, still being produced at 1 per year. So you don't want to be consuming your money. You want the money to be used for monetary purposes. Money is the market good that you
but
do
Bitcoin
not.
Can't.
Hold on, Peter. I'll let you finish. The money is the market good, David, that you do not consume. You strictly acquire it only to save it and exchange it for things later. It is not because gold is used in Peter's cufflinks that gold is money. Gold is money because it's a hard asset that despite rampant demand, finding new supply has been more difficult. That's why silver was demonetized. So all of his claims against Bitcoin are the same with gold. Again, what's the confidence that someone will value Bitcoin tomorrow? What's the confidence someone will value gold tomorrow? Gold is not used as a money because you can put it in cufflinks. Gold is used as a money for the monetary properties I just went over. What you want in a money is the monetary good that's best at being money, that's best at being the market good to both save your money through time, your value through time, and be able to exchange your value and money through space.
So this argument about inherent value gives all Bitcoiners and Austrian economists a splitting headache. Jack really holds his own here and challenges the ridiculous claim that gold has value because of its industrial use cases. If this was true, the vast majority of gold's market cap wouldn't be attributed to its monetary properties as a store of value. How much of the monetary premium of gold is placed on it as a store of value versus it as jewelry or components in electronics? As Jack points out, value is subjective and is arrived at by the free market, not by any magical inherent qualities. Money is not meant to be consumed, but traded for things you value into the future. Bitcoin represents unencumbered money, as its only value is placed on its ability to be a good money. Now let's move on to the most embarrassing part of the debate for Schiff.
Bitcoin is scarce in the sense that there's 21 million of them, but so what? It's just a string of numbers. There's nothing to look at. There's nothing that it does that's any different than all the other strings of numbers of all the other cryptocurrencies. In fact, there's 2.1 quadrillion Satoshis. I mean, there's enough Satoshis for everybody to have hundreds of thousands of them. You can't do anything more with a Bitcoin than you can with a Satoshi, which is nothing.
Man, Schiff is a smart guy, but I swear he drops 50 IQ points whenever he talks about Bitcoin. This is totally embarrassing, and I'm surprised Jack didn't laugh out loud here. Schiff is basically making the infinite pizza debate, which says Bitcoin isn't scarce because it can be infinitely divided. He's basically saying you can take one large pizza, divide it into millions of pieces, and feed the entire planet. Bitcoin is divisible, but that doesn't change the fact that there is only 21 million whole parts. Shockingly, many prominent economists have also made this mistake, so we'll excuse Schiff here for the brain fart. This next clip is my favorite part, and one which I think really encapsulates the debate of Bitcoin versus gold.
Getting back to your idea that Bitcoin is the greatest money that's ever been invented, I don't think it qualifies as money at all, because money has to be the most marketable commodity, and the commodity has to have value unto itself, and Bitcoin has none. Bitcoin is used to exchange, and you could speculate on it, you could buy it, and maybe somebody else will pay a higher price. But apart from that, it's not used for anything the way money is supposed to be, like gold is.
Peter, does a money need to be accepted at the store? So if like Papa John's does not accept a certain asset, would you then disqualify it as money? Which would mean gold
money
and
has
Bitcoin.
to be acceptable as a medium of exchange. Yes.
Okay, so gold is not money either.
Gold is not being used as money today other than by central banks. Gold has been demonetized and it's mainly a commodity, but it can be accepted. I mean, I would certainly accept gold, just like you would probably accept Bitcoin. But if somebody wanted to buy something from me and pay in gold, I'd be happy to take it. But gold is not functioning as money right now, even though it historically has been money. We've had about the last 50 years where gold has not been money ever since 1971, when Nixon, closed the gold window. But before that, gold was acting as money because it was backing up the currencies that were circulating. And what gave legitimate currency value was the gold, the money that backed it up.
The real problem with gold is that unfortunately it has to centralize. The problem is that gold can't achieve transaction finality without the help of a government or a central party, meaning that when gold was operating in a local economy and you can exchange the physical coins with your direct counterpart for your butcher, your local tailor, your grocer, whoever you were exchanging with, gold was great. When the world needed to scale an economy and the velocity of money larger than your local economy, gold failed us. Gold failed us because gold is just a bare physical metal. It does not carry a monetary network. What's the gold network? The gold network are human beings. And when you're trying to transact in an economy of billions of people globally, you are reliant on central parties, banks, governments. And it was for that reason that gold failed. And it failed in a way that you can't operate a truly free market when the concentrated supply is with those that you have to trust. And so that's fundamentally what Bitcoin solved, is that you are able to create a scarce bearer instrument and a network that can achieve finality in transactional settlement without the reliance on any government or central party. That's really the core issue of why gold's been demonetized since. I think on the points of Bitcoin, like needing more history and it's young, I mean, I think that sounds like a personal problem for you, Peter. Like that, I think you need more evidence. And that's you being slow to recognize reality, right? Like if you were to need the internet to prove that email is better than traditional mail, you would just be late to adopting better technology.
I love that mic drop moment where Jack catches Peter on gold not being used as money today. What Jack says here is the crux of the argument. Gold failed as money because it relies on corruptible humans. It became centralized, and the failure of human forces to keep an honest account of the centralized holdings is what led to fiat money in the first place. In a world without the need to trust corruptible humans on a large scale, gold would still exist as good money. But we don't live in that world, and we never will. Enter Bitcoin. This is exactly what Bitcoin was created to solve. It's the first money free from counterparty and centralization risk. We no longer need to trust the bank or the nation state that they hold the dollars or the gold that they say they do. So although this debate did get heated at times, I love the way the two showed mutual respect for each other. And it really ended on a positive note.
Yeah, I would just end it by telling the audience, I don't dislike gold at all. I like gold. And I like Peter. I mean, this screenshot of this conversation is going right in my scrapbook. Like I said, I grew up on both your work, really. But, you know, Peter, obviously, I really respect the good fight you've been fighting.
Let me just say one thing, too, to reiterate that. I have the same respect for Jack. You know, I'm not saying this to be condescending, but as a father, you know, I think that your parents did a great job in raising you. So I've got nothing but goodwill for you. And I really appreciate and admire what you've been able to accomplish. And I hope my kids can be as successful.
I appreciate that, man. That means a lot.
Love to see it. No matter where you stand on this debate, you got to find common ground. And the fact is that Bitcoiners and gold bugs are fighting the same fight. And they agree on the main problem that our current monetary system is broken. I also see this largely as a generational divide, and the age of the two is a great illustration of this. Bitcoin is young and often misunderstood and underestimated by gold bugs. And gold is often disrespected and dismissed by Bitcoiners. It's important to remember that we're both fighting the same fight against the evils of fiat money and central banking. Both Bitcoin and gold are hard money, and we can all agree that we need to move back to a hard money standard. So let's not try to hurl insults at each other. Let's try to focus on the common ground, because we're never going to convince each other through hate. That's it for today. Make sure you check out the full debate so you can come to your own conclusions. I'll leave the link in the description. Let me know what you think in the comments about this debate. Like this video if you made it this far, and subscribe to the Swan Bitcoin channel for more content like this. Thanks for watching. TikTok, next block.